Up next, we're talking AI, beyond the hype and into the real workplace transformation. Dr. Sean Gallagher is founder of Humanova and one of Australia's top future of work thinkers. Robbie Robertson leads digital experience strategy for Gensler and has spent nearly 30 years helping organisations create experiences that connect. Again, we will be running another Q&A session, so keep those phones out, but please welcome Sean and Robbie to the stage.
Just over 2.5 years ago, Russia invaded Ukraine. The Ukraine military was given maybe 3 or 4 days to hold off an enemy 10 times their size. But through grit, cunning, determination, the Ukrainians held Russia out of Kyiv, and they've since been fighting the war and doing so reasonably successfully through innovation. This is the cutting edge of AI. He's a Ukrainian soldier wearing a first-person view drone headset, FPV. I'm sure you've seen it many times lately. This headset has been optimized for AI-enhanced targeting, for better object recognition and better precision targeting in the field. It also has constant AI updates, constant innovation. You can see the gaffer tape on the headset every week. Since the start of the war, they've developed and gone through 6 generations of drones. And there's a really important feedback loop because data from the front line is fed back to train smarter and smarter AI models. The US has the best AI systems in the world, but its military is too slow to uptake it. The military, they preference legacy systems over AI innovation, meaning that it takes years to procure these new weapon systems. They're actually going to be out of date in a couple of months. So how do large legacy organizations respond to and adapt to exponential technologies? We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Deloitte did this terrific study almost 10 years ago now. At the time, the exponential technology was digital disruption. And it found that individuals, people, respond, adopt exponential technologies way faster than businesses and companies can adapt. The takeaway here is that organizations evolve with exponential technologies through their people, supported by systems and processes, not by systems and processes. There was this excellent article written about that study at the time. Digital disruption is a people problem. It's far better for companies to see this as an organizational and managerial challenge rather than a technical one. And of course, we only have to substitute digital disruption for AI today. The Ukraine military has established a highly sophisticated, if not a little gruesome, innovation system. They've gamified war. Units on the front line compete using their AI and drone technology, and they earn points taking out valuable enemy targets. The leading units can then convert their points into cash, and they can buy more of the tech, the AI, the drone technology that they need to continue winning. But the beauty of the system is that there's a valuable feedback loop to all of the manufacturers that this is the technology that's succeeding, allowing all units to have access to what is driving success on the field. In essence, Ukraine has seen AI adoption, innovation as an organizational challenge, not as a technical one. A couple of months ago, I got a call from, it was a panic call, from the CEO of an HR services firm. They provide HR functions to small companies that don't have it in-house. Think job descriptions, policies, payroll. And she said, my business is totally vulnerable to being disrupted by AI. And I'm working with her on charting a course forward to see her through this. She sees the biggest threat to her company as being her clients starting to do a lot of that in-house, writing their own job descriptions, policies, etc. I said, maybe that might be part of the threat. I think the biggest threat to her organization, and similarly to others, is actually from AI-first companies. Now, if I look at all of you here in the room, behind the spotlights, if you set up your companies today, they would look nothing like what they do. You would have AI at the core, figuring out how to deliver services, do work, etc. And how do you create value in the AI era? But these AI-first companies are pretty impressive, right? Here's a list of a few. Cursor. They've reached $100 million in annual recurrent revenue with less than 50 people in 1 year. Or Lovable, the Swedish AI lab with less than 20 people, and they're on a very similar trajectory. Yeah, but Sean, we're asset-based companies. We're not vulnerable to AI disruption. Well, you might have a little bit more time. Let me give you a couple of yeah buts. About 6 weeks ago, this private equity firm, they reached out to me, Sean, we'd love you to come and give a keynote at our annual offsite, and, I think AI, we're talking about AI, I'd love you to give you that keynote. I said, sure. Did the proposal, 95% ticked off. The CEO just likes to sign off on everything. Would you like to meet with him on Friday? Sure. Thursday, he'd had a board meeting. So he comes into meeting me and says, AI had gone from a curiosity to a burning platform, if not an existential threat. And waiting 2 months to give a keynote on AI, we don't have that time. And so we're working with them to enable their workforce and to get going right now. Yeah, but number two, I was giving a talk similar to this. I had the pleasure of working with Dell Technologies on a national roadshow, and the head of IT procurement for a major state government public health service came up to me afterwards and said, we're just about to make $1 billion decision for the next 10 years on the technology that we need to keep our health service going. Laptops, PCs, you can imagine what that is. And he said, I don't know if I'm actually investing in the right technology. Are these laptops actually going to be useless in a few years' time? And this is a serious conversation. These are live conversations from the front line of disruption from AI here in Australia. HR, private equity, public health, I could go on. This is happening now. I want you to change your mindset around AI. I want you to challenge your thinking. I want you to stop seeing AI as a technology, or certainly a traditional kind of technology. Start thinking about it as a digital colleague, somewhat, including this new intelligence in your workforce. In my opinion, I think most companies continue to see AI through the wrong lens. Stop measuring the small, like time saved on a particular task. It's next to worthless. Not only does it not take into account the quality uplift from AI, or the creativity, or potentially identifying new ways of working, but AI is evolving, and so it's probably going to be redundant, like tomorrow. use cases are next to useless. Pilots can be great for experimentation, but use cases aren't scalable across your organization because of the variety of people involved, etc., a whole number of the reasons I can go into. But they also risk setting up a perception in your company that, oh, this is what AI is for. AI is for everything. There's not a single bit of work that you do that AI cannot help achieve a better outcome for you. So I want you to change your mindset. This technology is constantly evolving. It's really hard to get that into my mind as well as everyone else. There's no plateau where, oh, okay, we've integrated AI, now we're in the new normal. It's a cliche because it's true that change is the new normal, but this is change in a way that we've never experienced before. AI is non-linear. We have no idea what the emergent capabilities of AI are going to be as it continues to become more sophisticated. AI is not static. It's very hard to measure. Measure your business. Measure the outcomes of your business from an AI-enabled workforce. I've been saying this for a long time now. AI is going to disrupt every organization, but rather than seeing it as a tech play, I want you to see it as about enabling your people. And in fact, AI is better seen as a talent strategy. And we're here today talking about the future of workplace. The future workplace is going to be, in my view, and my colleague Robbie, is going to be more important than it ever has been. I see a bright future for the future of workplace, but the purpose of workplace is going to be profoundly different, and I'll let Robbie go into that a little bit more. So how do we create value? How does AI transform, disrupt, and create value for our organizations? We've developed what we call the work value pyramid, and it's pretty simple. You know, if I take your role, or yours, or all of your roles together, and I looked at how much time you spend on tasks within it, well, 60, 70, 80% of the time is spent down the bottom of the pyramid. We spend our time doing administrative and basic functional tasks. We're actually not solving problems. We're just doing routine work that isn't really driving much value creation for our organization. Well, the beauty about AI is that it's incredibly good at helping us find efficiencies down the bottom of the pyramid, allowing us to repurpose time to focus at the top, where we create much more value for our organizations. And of course, augmented and supported with AI. The work that I've done over the last few years with AI, I've been in this game since literally early 2023, shows that when you have an AI-enabled workforce, you can see an increase in productivity, not measuring the small, averaged out across all work. Value creation is boosted, so is the agility of the organization to respond to changes. Well-being is enhanced, as is talent development. You've probably seen many a headline. 2025 is year of the AI agent. And it has, it's arrived. Some of my clients are already starting to integrate it into their workflows. And I get their attraction. They kind of look like a normal technology, right? You integrate this AI agent, workflow automation, process redesign, kind of stuff that we've been using, standard technology for. But of course, it's AI, right? And it's not going to be perfect. But as you're integrating AI agents into your workflows and your processes, it's going to help hollow out the bottom of the work value pyramid. We need to continue investing in our people at the top to create more value, to really find new opportunities. As I say pretty regularly, agents are going to help you extract more value out of your current business model, but it is your people who are going to help you find out your next business model, and you're going to have to find that sooner than you think. There's a denouement to the war story out of Ukraine. A couple of weeks ago, Pete Hegseth, the US Secretary of Defense, rescinded all ways of adopting AI that they had done previously. He sees what's happening in the Ukraine as the Silicon Valley of war. And he's now devolved decision-making, experimentation, innovation of AI and drone technology to the front line, and allowed colonels to make different decisions so that they can now learn from everyone. Put a post up on LinkedIn yesterday about these 4 F's that I see increasingly defining the future organization. Maybe not even future, maybe now, in the AI era. Flatter, fewer, fitter, faster. Flatter, because we're going to have shorter decision paths between in our organizations. We really need to empower those on the front line to make decisions, to innovate, to take advantage of opportunities as they arrive. We also need to, we're going to have fewer. By that I mean a lower increase in headcount. At some point, it may mean lower headcount, but as we've seen, some organizations have misstepped and they're now pulling that back. Regardless, it's going to have significant implications to the workplace. Fitter, we need AI-capable humans. We need to build the AI workforce of tomorrow, starting today. And it's not just about being able to use AI within your work, it's actually seeing AI as a digital colleague, an intelligence with whom we collaborate on everything. And faster. It's not just that AI can help you do things faster, it's because of AI you have no choice but to do business faster. Well, there's a 5th F, and that's the future of workplace, and here's to Robbie.
So we've heard Sean talk about talent. We've heard talk about what we do every single day in terms of task-based work and the impact that AI is going to have on what we do every single day, today and tomorrow. What I want to do is add to that conversation, build on what we've been hearing about the Silicon Valley of war in terms of Ukraine, etc., and think about how do we apply that into the workplace. I wholeheartedly agree with Sean. I think there is a very bright future for the physical workplace, and I think it's because of the ability to adopt technology and bring it together to be able to solve and to reimagine what that looks like. But before we go there, where do we start? So fundamentally agree that AI is a talent strategy, but to allow that talent strategy to come to life and to flourish, we need to support that with a technology strategy and a workplace strategy. Because together, all 3 of those will allow us to be able to monitor productivity and be able to connect back to the ability for us to be able to deliver what we're supposed to be doing for that organization, which is value, which is profit, and ability to deliver on the products and services that they would do that. Now, there's one thing that holds all that together, the red thread. And for me, that's purpose. And I think every single presentation this morning has talked about purpose. So it's actually really apt to be able to bring that to life and start to think about that and how do we apply that in the development of the workplace. Because by getting and creating a great purpose, we're creating a North Star that allows us to, from the CEO to the new grad that's coming in, to come together and to be able to think about what is it that binds us all together and ladders up to the insights, the ideas, what gets us out of bed every morning, what gets us to come into the office and feel that we are leaning into the things that we are doing is laddering up to being able to the greater good for that organization. And that all of us contributing to that North Star and to that purpose will allow us to be able to start to think about how do we deliver that going forward. Now, before we do that, I wanted to do a little bit of a controversial truth. So we heard Sean talk earlier on about technology and the role technology has been playing over the next 3 to 5 years. I wanted to share this with you. It was a little bit of research I've been doing into where the impact of technology is going to be on what we do every day. Now, Sean mentioned that AI is going to help us at that bottom end of the pyramid to remove a lot of that task-based work. Now, if we think about the way that we design our offices, the desks that we put in for everyone to come in and sit with their laptops and get on with their task-based organization and the task-based delivery of what they need to do, what happens if AI then takes away the primary tool that we're designing for, which is the laptop? What happens if we start to no longer have that as a dominant tool? And do you think that's something we'll actually see happening in the near future? Well, probably not tomorrow, but definitely in the next 3 to 5 years. What we're seeing is a lot of the technology organizations are shifting from keyboard-based laptops to tablets. What we're seeing is tablets, where they're predicted by 2030 that we'll all be going to be using these tablets and we'll be using it through voice, gesture, and wait for it, brain-computer interfaces, which just completely messes my brain. So in the next 5 years, we are no longer going to be using laptops as our dominant tool. That changes everything in terms of the way that we have to design our physical spaces. Because those technologies, those tablets, as we call them today, whatever they're going to be called in the future, but we call them tablets today, are going to automatically connect to monitors. They're going to automatically connect to meeting rooms. So you're going to create a living workplace. You're going to be always on. The technology is going to be around you to support you, to provide you with the ability for you to be able to think about and not focus on those task-based, but to think about the higher forms of functions that Sean talked about in terms of idea generation and thinking and being present in the room. So let's talk then about agents. So if we can agree that by 2030, there's no longer have laptops and we're all going to be using tablets and they're all going to be voice gesture, etc. What does that look like? Well, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking to Trish from Cornell, and we were talking about how does everyone use AI? And can I just ask everyone a question? Does everyone use AI on a regular basis? Show of hands. Every day? That's pretty good. It's pretty good. I did this conversation a year ago. 70% of the room did not use AI. And so it's great to see that we're propelling forward, and now it really is becoming ubiquitous in what we're doing. Now, what Trish was talking about was the use of that digital agent and to be able to completely transform what she does every day. She uses ChatGPT and Claude, and she's become a digital co-worker. And she is so important in Trish's team, she's given her a name, Sally. Because for Trish, Sally is so important, as equally important to any other human in her team. So she wanted to humanize her, wanted to bring her to life and be able to ensure that Sally had a seat, figuratively had a seat at that table every single time she came into a meeting or she helped with research, etc. So allowing Sally to be there, Trish has been able to completely change the way that she thinks about or applies herself in meetings. She's more present and has been able to be more efficient in terms of being able to think about what is the conversations that are being had on the day, and not actually thinking about taking notes and saying that everything, Sally's doing that for her. It's also allowing her to give her time back in the day to be able to focus on the things that she wants to be able to do. Give me 2 seconds. So, if Sally is now part of Trish's team, how does that then ladder back up to what we want to do. So Sally now ensures that she is able to do what she's been to do, is provide agency. What Sally is allowing her to do is be able to excel at her job. What Sally's allowing her to do is being able to change the nature of her being able to be accountable and be able to connect back to what is the purpose of the organization she's working for, what is the value that she is bringing to that organization, and of removing a lot of that task-based component that has really taken up 60, 70% of her day and time. So we talk about the value of workplace. I don't need to impress on you how important we all believe the workplace is. We all design it, we all construct it, we do that every single day of our life, and we're all passionate about it. And at the top of all our agendas are three key things. First, how do we look at the physical? How do we implement and integrate agility to be able to ensure that the spaces that we design are fit for purpose and are going to meet the needs of our clients over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years? We're also thinking about, knowing, we've heard it again this morning, time and time again, that our workplaces are becoming increasingly more social. Increasingly where people come together to ideate, to come together to think about and create ways for us to connect. And I think that is one of the fundamental values of creating a physical workplace, is to allow people to do that. The third thing, and it is in every single conversation that we have now, is technology. And how do we integrate digital and technology into every single physical environment that we develop? I wanted to add a couple of other things though to that. Is if that is what the fundamental foundation is, what is the value that actually is able to give to us in terms of being able to create environments that generate ideas, that create rapid innovation that we saw happening so efficiently and eloquently, and a little bit kind of rudimentary in terms of what we had in the Ukraine war, but fundamentally that's what it's doing, but with serendipity, and I'll come back to talk about that in a couple of minutes. I want to take a step back into what are we seeing today. Now, one of the great things that I wanted to share was that Gensler have been doing research into the future workplace for the last 20 years. So we've gone out to 17 countries, 16,800 respondents, and some of the key insights that we're getting through, I wanted to share with you around what are we seeing, the makeup of what is happening in the office today. I want you to look at one thing. Working alone, task-based work, 39%. Working with others, 41%. We're going to see that. That hasn't really changed in the last 3 to 5 years. We've seen a shift since COVID around that working together, 41%. I think that's moved to about 5%. But fundamentally, task-based has got slightly decreased, but that, I think, is what we're going to see the biggest change over the next 3 to 5 years. Because if the prediction that Sean says around AI coming in and completely removing what we're doing in terms of working in the task-based work, that need requirement is going to significantly shrink, and the working with others is going to significantly increase. Now, the other two things I want you to look at is socializing and learning. Only 10%. This is a global study. For the Australian part of the study, number one reason to come into the office, socializing. Number 3 was learning. So, if we are starting to think about designing the workplace of the future, we need to absolutely consider what is it that we're going to be doing to increase the ability and spaces to allow us to socialize, and how do we embed learning into every environment that we create. Next insight I thought would be interesting and relevant for today was one of the key challenge that we're seeing across every workplace, noise. What's causing that noise? Hybrid meetings, sitting at your desk, clicking the clack, and conversations on calls. You can see there on that list up there. But if the prophecy is true around us moving to voice-based tablets and gesture-based and always being a living workplace, isn't that challenge going to exponentially increase? Something for us to consider and something for us to ponder as we go through the next 3 to 5 years. And then the third insight I wanted to share with you around from the research was the changing trend in the workplace settings. And again, what's interesting here is that we're seeing an absolute increase at the top end around the nature retreat and creative labs, but we're seeing a significant decrease in those standard desk professional, efficient-like professional business hub areas. Now, I think it's going to be, again, fundamentally, it's going to change as we think about AI and think about the effect of Sally on what we do. This is going to, again, completely change for us. And as a community, we need to think about how do we embed, what the impact of AI and Sally is going to be in this list. I talked about serendipity. I could really kind of put any more value on the impact of serendipity in terms of the way that we start to think about the spontaneous idea generation that creates the value for an organization. You know, you bump into a colleague in a coffee queue, or you bump into them in a stair, you share ideas and thoughts, and bam, off you go, and an idea is created, or a new thought process created, and a new idea is then taken forward, and it's created into a new kind of concept and a focus for that team. But multiply that by the number of employees, the number of environments that we create, and the people that we bring together, and the number of days that people are in the office, and we do know that people are wanting to come back into the office. In fact, the study showed that 1 in 4 people want to be back in the office, and the deterrent at the moment is ability to technology is one of the biggest deterrents for coming in, and lack of the right types of spaces and noise, as I mentioned before. But imagine if we pulled all that together and got it right. A very, very, very powerful equation for creating an incredible ideas factory. And then, you know, if you think about that, we've already seen it. Who knows MIT Building 20? I've used this for years as an example of not design, because it's not going to win any design awards, but it's what we can learn from in terms of what happened within that building. Whilst, you know, it created 9 Nobel Prize winners. It incubated the Bose Corporation, and was loved and was seen as the second most innovative space within the US in terms of creating serendipity, creating ideas, and allowing the flexibility of the space to allow people to come together to think about what that future looks like. Now, imagine if we were to overlay technology onto that. To allow MIT Building 20 to be able to support in terms of conversations, in terms of accelerating research, gathering notes and data, how much further an acceleration that we can do in terms of creating those ideas and moving forward. Now, Sean mentioned before that use cases are no longer really relevant in terms of what we look at in AI, and I agree with them. But test cases absolutely are. Now, what this building was so good at was creating skunkworks, was creating environments that allow people to come together, strap on the thing on the side of the head and be able to see, does it work or not? Imagine if we start to think about that in terms of every one of us going out tomorrow and creating test cases environments where we bring technology, people, and place together, bring our IT teams, our human resources teams, and our place and property teams together to think about the purpose and North Star that has been set by the organization to go, if AI is embedded at that top North Star, how do we then filter that through into creating working environments that are fit for purpose for where we're going in the future? And wouldn't that be amazing if we were to take all that insights that we all get together and bring that into the likes of CoreNet and share all of that, similar to what we saw in Ukraine in terms of being able to rapidly innovate, share ideas, and move forward as a community. So, we've talked about AI for the last three years, and what the recent Deloitte study showed that 72% or 2/3 of organizations are already looking at and testing and using AI. Fantastic. 95% of those cases have failed because what they've been trying to focus on is just trying to solve one small component of a bigger problem, or it's just the property team that's been trying to use it, or it's just the technology team that's been trying to use it, or it's just the talent team that's been trying to use it, or the innovation team that's trying to use it. What we've learned very quickly over the last couple of years is that to allow us to be able to get the value, to allow us to scale, and to allow us to be able to understand the impact of it, we need to look at this at the broader company level, from grad to CEO and back down again, and understand what is it that we can try and to extract the right data to allow us to be able to understand where do we go from here. Because once we create those use cases, test cases, we put in a nice report, AI's already moved on. And that's the biggest challenge that we face at the moment. So, what do we do with all of that? We've got workplace data that we've been gathering for years that have really helped us to support in terms of the way that we think about and design the spaces that we have today. We then have that underlay of AI now coming in and taking over what is we doing. But if we bring that together, we can actually use AI to generate insights and recommendations that allow us to be job specific. To imagine if we were to create a dashboard for our property teams, or for our client experience teams, or for our talent teams, or for the head of a group or business unit, and say, here's what the data is telling us each day, and this is what you can do to improve the experience and improve the efficiency of your team. Imagine if we were able to gamify our workplaces. I think I've heard about this before. We have talked about it in the last few years, but imagine if we were to take and apply what we heard from Sean in terms of what they've been doing in Ukraine, and use the gamification process to allow teams to test AI in a physical environment, but then to translate that into ability for them to be able to forward their own ability for personal development. Imagine if we were actually able to think about the testing environment in a different way, shifting from interior designers coming through and at a project-based into operate-based. So we're using our interior design teams who become embedded into organizations on a monthly or quarterly basis that take that insights from the data and start to redesign spaces on a continuous momentum, so that meets the needs of the workforce. Not just think about designing a space that looks nice today that may not actually have any function or be able to be not relevant in 3 to 5 years' time. So, to wrap it up, we've talked about purpose. We've talked about, imagine if we were to embed AI into the purpose of an organization. Imagine if we were to really challenge our mindset around creating an AI-enabled workplace, and what things we need to consider. And I agree with Sean that we do need to think about how do we create a flatter organizational structure in terms of decision-making paths. How do we bring the right people together from talent, property, and IT, and really solve this as one team? How do we start to think about, if there is a lower headcount, but we do have Sally, our digital agents, what does that look like in terms of the way that we design those spaces? How do we think about an AI-capable workforce and look at the spaces that they need to be able to become and use and be literate and be efficient and effective? Now, we don't have a crystal ball, and we're not here to come up with lots of ideas or solutions, but we do know that through using a strong purpose with a North Star that AI is embedded into, we together, the whole organization, can help to ensure that AI has a real sense of purpose and really can help an organization succeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Oh, that's it. Hello? Oh, we're on. Beautiful.
Hello.
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 Thank you so much, guys.
Hello.
Questions are coming in hot, so we might just jump into them.
Yep.
Can we start with, so who owns AI?
That's an interesting question. I'm not quite sure what that means. I suppose you could answer it into a number of, fundamentally, when you're using AI within work, Robbie put up a slide there about the North Star. We had 2 dimensions, right? What's the what's the unique human capability? What's their comparative advantage with respect to AI? And it really boils down to two things. Humans have agency to take risks, use their empathy, judgment, expertise, to explore and create new things. But unlike AI, humans are accountable. The AI will never go to jail or be fined $500,000 for doing something wrong. It's a human. So if that, I think, is the answer to the question, who owns the AI, ultimately a human has to be accountable at some point. And when it comes down to the work that you do, as I'm sure you already know, it's not just a human in the loop. Every word or every output that comes from the AI, you have to own it.
Yeah. And just to add to that, we often, the question we often get is governance, cybersecurity, who owns the data, how far should we be going? I think everyone has to own it in terms of the AI and what they understand the ecosystem of their organization that they're in, understand where they should be going, and what kind of guardrails are being put in place for them to be able to test and learn, or to be able to fuse it, or to use AI in different iterations in terms of the jobs that they've been doing. So who owns it? Everyone does, but under the governance structure of that organization.
I can understand in some organizations the CIO might be in charge of AI, but he or she should not own it. It has to be whole of organization.
Thank you both. I might ask the most popular question here. So, they've jumped up.
Whoa.
We've got a lot of, okay. A few popular ones. Can you please comment on the environmental impact of AI and how might this be addressed?
I get asked this question a lot. It's not trivial. It's hard to say, right? So Google just, environmental, there's concerns about energy, there's concerns about water use. In just the last 12 months, Google's algorithms that drive AI are 33 times more efficient than what they were 12 months ago. So yes, of course, that was also an increase in use of AI, but fundamentally, they are becoming more energy efficient. They're using less water, but it is a broader policy question that I think we all need to have. This get on my soapbox for a second. I think it is the Australian government has been asleep at the wheel here in Australia. We should have our own data centers. We should be investing in them. We should be investing in our own large language models. And with that, there would come with the energy, the water policy, et cetera, to support them. We've been a little bit too focused on AI ethics and safety in this country, but fundamentally, I think we need to be driving this, right? Rather than just relying on what might happen in the US or some data center somewhere else.
And so it's interesting that the slide, their digital disruption slide from 2017, absolutely said that, didn't it? The government was a real laggard in terms of digital disruption and adoption.
Another popular one for you both. If AI does the basic tasks in workplace, how do our juniors and younger staff members gain that valuable experience and knowledge to allow them to grow and progress?
So I love this question, and this comes up every single time. Why I love it is because when we started talking about the role of the physical workplace is fundamentally going to have a very bright future. It's because of this. It's because people learn by viewing, seeing, and understanding what other professionals or their other team members. And yes, you're absolutely those tasks that are being removed that allow our junior teams to learn. They then they're skipping up that food chain. They're still if they're in the work environment and they're working with their senior team members and their leaders, they're learning through osmosis. They're learning around what is it that they're doing, and they're skipping to understanding, well, how do I ideate? How do I problem solve? How do I communicate? How do I come as a team? What does that look like? And moving and really honing in on those skills. Now, World Economic Forum has identified the top 10 skill sets that were required by 2030. Actually, the top was actually data analytics, which was interesting, but just below that is ideation generation and synthesization of information and being able to communicate and work together. And I think that's what we need to really focus on, helping and supporting our junior team members and learning those incredibly important soft skills for them to be able to translate and to become our future leaders.
I think universities have a lot of catching up to do. Currently, we see, knowledge is always going to be very important, but we still see knowledge for productive purposes. That is diminishing. How do we train future graduates to use knowledge for creative purposes so that when they come into our organizations, they're already operating far higher up that work value pyramid than doing task-based work, which is going to rapidly disappear. And of course, a lot of the younger generation, we heard of digital natives. Soon we'll hear of AI natives, and having younger people in our organizations who understand, who have an intuition for the technology is going to benefit everyone.
And you saw that slide where I showed around what does the makeup of the office look like today, and 10% was learning. I see that actually fundamentally increasing, and that every work environment is going to be a living learning lab. That's going to be one of the core reasons why we come into the office every day.
Sean and Robbie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is all we have time for today, but really appreciate you sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.